Okay, I'm working on a little applique today, just taking a little side trip here, and I've decided to just go ahead and put the figure on the cloth. You can see I just sort of did a loose drawing using a dark pen on the white and a white pencil on dark so that I could see the line. And I didn't, I don't transfer my designs directly from any drawings or anything. My method of transfer is really just to draw it again. I kind of feel like drawing should be a reflection of the moment, really. And I've begun to actually turn, and this is what I call line-guided applique, where I just sort of clip around the drawing that I make and then turn under the edges until the line disappears. Applique is one of those things that you can really do quite detailed if you have the patience for it. The hardest thing a lot of times is, getting into the crevices. So what I've done is I've clipped, with a scissor, clipped into this area here, into the point, and I've turned up to there, and then I just come back around. And actually, when I'm turning a point, I like to clip a little bit so that I have just a little small section to turn initially. And it's really just this sweeping motion. You can use your other finger just to sort of hold it, but you do this kind of a sweeping thing. And usually you can take maybe an extra stitch that's very close in the curve there. I'm not always that fussy about either following the line or making it that perfect. To me, as long as it's holding on to the ground fabric and it doesn't look like it's going to fall apart, it'll be fine. And a lot of times, if you don't do it right the first time, you can come back with another threaded needle and do another set of stitches in between the ones you took, and that will make a smoother line. A lot of these things are just practice. I know for some people, I think the biggest obstacle is not necessarily the fact that they can't learn it. It's just that they just can't find the patience to try it over and over again. And that's true of so many things. And then, on line-guided applique, I sometimes let the line show to give it a shadow, which I've often called shadow applique, I guess. And that I like too. But you just work slowly. You just don't try to go too quickly. If you're using a fabric that's kind of thickish, you're going to have a really hard time. If you use something, this is kind of a sheeting here that isn't too tightly woven, but if you use a cotton lawn or something, you're going to find it's much simpler. And also, you might want to use a smaller needle. Some fabrics just don't turn well. And if you're having a terrible, terrible time, most likely you're using the wrong materials. So I'm going to go all the way around here and just fix this figure to this background today because I needed a little side trip. And yeah, I bet you this will take me maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. I'll sew with white thread on the white parts, and I'll switch to a black thread over here. And depending on the thickness of the cloth, I may cut away the background underneath, but we'll see. usually your stitches, if they go all the way through, they leave a little trail that you can follow to cut. I wouldn't cut behind here, but I might cut some of this fabric out here to manage the thickness of the cloth. But then again, that has a lot to do with what you're going to use it for as well. So if you space your stitches out too far, you get kind of a bubbling. And again, there's nothing wrong with coming back in and doing another round here, stitching between where you stitched, and that will give you a really much cleaner edge if that's what you want. You know, when you get to the points, I usually cut off either the extra that's sort of accumulated there and also kind of make it as little fabric as I can as I turn. And again, I try to take more less spaced stitches at the points. I also have some lazier methods for this, but I'm at least making an attempt to sew this down. And you know, like when you try to do these kinds of things, if your fabric is too loosely woven or it's slippery, now you see, I also, let me mention too, this was cut from a fabric that was seamed, so when I did the drawing against the seam, I kind of split the seam here, which will allow me to turn this side under, and this side being already a seam, I'm just going to stitch that down. Actually, I've kind of missed its place, but, and you know, it's common sense. Clip the extra out, and when you come to a curve, clip into there to relieve the tension so that it can kind of fold in on itself and turn. I can see that's a mess already here. A lot of times I leave those little tufts, especially when I'm doing the ears. Or I let it be messy and I come back in later and decide how much I want to clean that up. It's not like we're having a contest here or anything. Okay, so you can see that that's not the best point in the world, but I could come back in with a needle and thread and push that extra in, but right now I'm just going to leave it because there's just many instances where you can go back and do the mending, the design mending that you need. So now I'll switch to black, sew the rest of this.